Solving equations by cross-multiplying, part 3. In today's lesson, students will solve equations with a fraction where they have to cross-multiply. Where they have to do what? Cross-multiply. Very good. So now you are all familiar with how to solve equations using cross-multiplication. What we want to do is show you how to solve a multi-step equation. Multi-step means more than one step. What does it mean? More than one step. So we're going to be solving multi-step equations, and you're going to see a fraction. You're going to see a what? A fraction. Okay? The fraction is going to have x at the top. Where's x going to be? At the top. Okay? So when solving equations with a fraction, okay, so look at this equation down here. It says x divided by -2 minus 1 equals 2. Wow, that looks tricky, right? Well, it's really not too difficult. You know this is a fraction, right? X is on top. This is the fraction. First, all I want you to do is circle the fraction. So you're going to write circle the fraction. Okay, and you are going to make a T like you normally do when you're solving an equation. Okay, you're going to make a T. So you're going to make a T, and you can put that in quotations. Okay, whenever you put a letter, okay, you typically put it in quotations like this. You're going to make a T. You do that to separate both sides of the equation. Okay, why do you do it? To separate both sides, right? Because whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. Okay, so get that down. Okay, here we go. So next, when you go to solve this equation, what you have to do is look at the number or the integer that is next to what you circled. So what is this integer here? It's not 1, it's -1. So we want to do the opposite okay? We want to do the opposite on both sides. Do the opposite on both sides. So what is the opposite of -1? What is it? The opposite of -1 is +1. That's right. Okay. Now when we do the operations, because what you're supposed to do now, of course, is ask, what's -1? A -1 and a +1 make 0. Now you're going to bring down this fraction. Okay, you're going to bring down x divided by -2. Got that? X divided by -2. Now that's going to equal, what is 2 plus 1? 2 plus 1 is, what is 2 plus 1? It's +3. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this over here. The fraction we have is x over, and I'm going to make the -2, I'm going to make it red because it's a negative number. Okay? That equals what? It equals 3. Okay? So see, now what we have is we have an equation where we have a fraction equaling a whole number. What do you have to do here? If you have a fraction on the left, you need to make a fraction on the right. How do you make 3 a fraction? What do you put underneath it? You put a, what do you put underneath it? You put a 1. Okay. After you put that 1, the last step then, when you have one fraction that equals another fraction, you need to cross-multiply. You need to do what? Cross-multiply. Very, very good. So you're going to write cross-multiply. All right. Cool. Now, this cross multiplication is very easy, and a lot of you forgot how to do it. When x is on top, it is going to equal what is on the bottom times the top of this fraction. So watch. Remember what x times 1 is. X times 1. Any number times that, any number times 1 is that number multiplied by 1. So x times 1 is actually just x. You just get x again. Okay, and it's going to equal, what is a positive 3 times a negative 2? Positive 3 times negative 2 is, it's a negative what? Negative 6. Very good. Okay, so that is how to solve these equations. Get that down. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example. Read it with me. It says negative 2 plus x divided by 6 equals 3. Okay? All right. So, does this equation have a fraction? Does it have a fraction? Remember, a fraction has a fraction bar, and in these problems, you're going to see a letter on top of the fraction. What's the fraction? Is it x divided by 6? Yes. It is x divided by 6, so I want you to circle this, okay? All right. And then you're going to make a t. Okay, to separate both sides of the equation. So now what you're supposed to do, take a look at this number. What's this number? It's a negative 2. Okay, I want you to do the opposite to both sides. What's the opposite of negative 2? It's positive 2. That's right. Okay, so a negative 2 and a positive 2 makes 0. You're going to bring down this fraction. Remember, the fraction is x divided by 6. And now it equals 3 plus 2. Okay, they're both positive, so you're going to add them. Okay, so 3 plus 2 is positive what? It's positive 5. Good job. Okay, here we go. So remember, you have x divided by 6 equals 5. If you have a fraction on the left, you need to make a fraction on the right. How do you make 5 a fraction? What do you put under it? You put the number 1. Okay, remember this? Okay, now that you have 2 equal fractions, you can cross multiply. What can you do? Cross multiply. So we're going to cross multiply. Remember, x is on top. If x is on top of the fraction, this is very simple because it's x times 1. Remember, what is x times 1? It's not 1, it's x, okay? So we're just going to write x. And then you're going to do positive 6 times a positive 5. Okay, just 6 times 5, there are no signs. What is 6 times 5? It is 30. Very good, okay? So go ahead and get that down. Now, notice I didn't have to draw Bob, okay, because this is a positive times a positive. So we were not multiplying integers, really, okay? We're just multiplying positive numbers. Okay, so read equation number 2 with me. This says negative 3 plus x divided by negative 2 equals a negative 10. So, does this equation have a fraction? What is it? It is x divided by negative 2. So I want you to circle this fraction, and we're going to set up this equation by separating both sides with a t. Okay. Why do we circle the fraction? Because now we have to look at the number next to the fraction and ask ourselves, what is the opposite of negative 3? The opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. What is it? It's positive 3. So we add 3 then to both sides. Okay, so a negative 3 and a positive 3 make 0. Make sure you bring down the whole fraction. Bring down x divided by negative 2. Are you with me? Then put an equal sign, okay? All right. Now we have a negative 10 and a positive 3. Okay, now we're adding integers, okay? We are adding integers. We're not multiplying. We have a negative 10 and a positive 3. Do they have the same signs or different signs? Different. So you say, different signs, subtract. Keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact. All right, so we have a negative 10 and a positive 3. We're going to subtract. So count back from 10, okay? We're going to say 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, what is the sign going to be? What's the bigger number? What's the bigger number? It's negative 10. So this will be a negative 7. All right. Okay, so these are like the equations we saw last week. What do we have to do to make negative 7 a fraction? We have to put what under it? The number 1, okay? Once you put the number 1 under 7, then you can cross multiply. Very simple. Now we're going to need Bob to help us here, because looks like we're going to have a negative times a negative. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you, what is x times 1? Okay, so remember the song, any number times 1 is that number multiplied by 1. Okay, so any letter times 1 is that letter multiplied by 1. Okay, so if I say x times 1, what's x times 1? It's x. Very good, okay? Okay, so now you're going to have a negative 2 multiplied by a negative 7. What is a negative times a negative? The sign is going to be, circle it, positive. So you're going to get a positive 2 times 7. What's 2 times 7? 2 times 7 is, come on, 2 times 7, people. 7 times 2, 7, 14. Okay, so the answer is positive 14. Go ahead and get that down. Okay, read the last example with me. It says, x divided by negative 2 minus 2 equals a negative 6. All right, so we're going to ask ourselves, what is the fraction in this equation? What's the fraction? Remember, it has x on the top. What's the fraction? Say x divided by negative 2. Yes, that is the fraction. Very good. That's the fraction. All right. So we're going to circle the fraction and make a, what are we making? Making a t. Okay. So then you ask yourselves, okay, look at the number that's next to the fraction. What is the opposite of negative 2? It is positive 2. So you're going to add 2 to both sides. Now we're going to do the operations. A positive 2 and a negative 2 make 0. You're going to bring down the fraction, which is x divided by 2. All right? Now it's going to equal, let's do the operations with these integers, with negative 6 and a positive 2. Okay, are they the same signs or different signs? Different. So you say different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the higher number, then you'll be exact. So we're going to subtract 6 minus 2. What's 6 take away 2? It is 4. And what's the sign of the higher number? It's negative. Okay? Let's get those lights back on. There we go. Blackout. Okay. So now you have a fraction on the left. We need to make a fraction on the right. How do you make negative 4 a fraction? What do you put under it? You put a 1. Very good. And why do you do that? Why do you put a 1? So you can do what now? What are you going to do? Cross multiply. Right. Okay. So you're going to do x times 1. Remember, x times 1. Any letter times 1 is that letter. Multiply by 1. All right, so now we're going to make the other wing of the butterfly. Okay, negative 4 times 2. So when you're multiplying integers, you have to remember Bob, okay? So we have a negative 4 times a positive 2 equals a negative. You're right. It's going to equal a negative. So put the answer as negative. What is 4 times 2? 4 times 2 is 8. That's right. So your answer here is x equals negative 8. Go ahead and get that down.